today's Tuesday teaching tip. Today's tip is about reading the classics. When reading the classics, there are 3 things you can consider. 1 is what list do you use? 2, what grade level do you begin reading the classics? And 3, how do you go about reading these classics? Number 1, the list is up to you. When you search the list, you'll find that no one expert agrees with another as to what the top 10 list should include. And so you can extend your list maybe to the top 25, top 50. I happen to find a list here of the top 150. And so if you can't find this list, you can email me at staff@homeschoolfeast.com and I'll be glad to send you an electronic copy of the 150 list. As homeschoolers, with that 150 list, you can then pick and choose what your top 20, 25, 50, 100 is from that list, and get those read by the time your homeschool student graduates. All right, so there's the list. After choosing that list, you need to consider at what grade level do you begin reading these classics. And again, as a homeschooling family, you get to decide that. Know that there are some classics that do lend themselves to being read at an earlier age, elementary school age, and like Dickens' Christmas Carol, Gulliver's Travels. There's some in there that the elementary students would really enjoy and still be able to understand. Remember that students' reading comprehension level and their listening comprehension level vary. So normally their listening comprehension level is 2 grades above what their reading comprehension level is. So some of these stories are still appropriate for elementary students. All right, with that said, how do I go about reading these books? And that depends on your reader. If your reader is a voracious reader, they will probably have no trouble getting through the top 150 classics. If, however, you have a reluctant reader or a struggling reader, a reader with any types of disabilities, then you might want to vary things up a little bit. So some of the choices that you have to help with that are continuing read aloud, even through high school. Continuing to read aloud to your children. Now, that doesn't mean you read the entire book to them. You could take turns reading a chapter, then your child reads a chapter, and so forth. You can also do the audio version. You can do a mix of both. That's what my son and I did when he was taking his American literature and British literature classes. We take turns reading aloud and certain chapters, and listening to some chapters on the audio version of the book. And so those are really good ways to help your struggling reader. Now, my son didn't struggle so much in reading, comprehension, vocabulary, any of those things. He has Tourette syndrome, and so it's really difficult for him to sit physically for long periods of time reading a book. And so that helped out tremendously. And I know other parents have students who have dyslexia, and that it would be really difficult for them to read some of these really thick classics. And so you can do a little version of what we did and listen to audio and do read aloud. The third thing, which is a little more controversial, is the abridged versions of these classics. Again, as a homeschooling family, you get to decide. I liked some of these because when it was a classic that didn't happen to be assigned in my son's curriculum or by a co-op teacher, but I did want him to read, these abridged versions were nice because it was kind of a side project of let's be exposed to some of these classics without having the lengthy not having the time to read the lengthier versions of them. But at least my son was exposed to the plot line, the storyline, the gist of these books, so that if later on he's asked to read them in college, well, he has a good grasp on at least the basic storyline. And so again, it's up to you as a homeschool family as to what you use and how you go about reaching your goal of completing your list of classic books. But just know that these other things, these other options of reading aloud, audiobooks, and the Abridged Classics are things that can help you and your children accomplish your goal of reading the classics. All right, so I will see you next week when I start a series on mentor sentences to help you with grammar and punctuation in your writing. Until then, have a good week.